Good evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world. Um, so today I'm going to be doing video response is probably the wrong word, but a video inspired by something I recently watched posted on YouTube by Noel Plum 99. His video titled "Why Society Must Do Better by Fathers," and I will put a link down to that below. And I'll start by saying I think it was an excellent and well thought out video. I just wanted to expand on the theme that he started there with some personal experiences of mine, and generally I am going to try and avoid personal issues there on this channel because it's really hard. It's really hard when you've had some kind of personal experience within a thing, within a system, or within, over a specific thing, to step back and try and take an objective view. And I do try to take an objective view. This is on the issue of gender equality in parenting, and I want to state right now that I don't consider myself to be a men's rights activist. I don't consider myself to be part of that fraternity who believes that sexual equality laws have taken things too far the other way, and now men are, on the whole, disadvantaged compared to women. Because I just don't think that's true. I think there's areas of disadvantage for both genders, and probably you haven't got the balance quite right, and it's going to take an eternity of tinkering to get it totally right. But for this particular issue, and it's one that is quite, I've had personal investment in on a very serious level for which I'll elaborate on later. For this issue, I do feel men are disadvantaged. I highly recommend, before watching any more of this video, pause, click the link below, open it in a new tab or in a new browser so you don't lose where you are on this video, or make a note at the time, and watch Noel's video. Now, it's an expansion of another video he's made. That's also worth watching, but you don't really have to watch it to understand within the context of this. And I'm, seriously asking you to do some watching now. So take a look at that, but I will sort of sum up what I think are some of the key points in it now. So hopefully you've all now had a chance to view that. So good job, you lot. For those who haven't, just damn lazy. It's a good video. It's worth watching, and Noel's channel's worth checking out. I don't agree with everything he has to say about everything, but what he does say he puts well, and he researches, and he tries to be objective and balanced. So, and he's one of these rare YouTubers who, if he's wrong about something, will say he's wrong about something, and will retract it later on, and I respect that. So the gist of the video is it's looking at the inequality in social perceptions and in law, specifically British law, between mothers and fathers, and how fathers aren't really afforded the same opportunity to invest emotionally in their children's relationship. Well, they're not always afforded the same opportunity anyway, to invest emotionally in their children's relationship and be as actively involved in their upbringing, especially when it comes to sort of more exceptional circumstances. And one of those exceptional circumstances I want to talk about, and I apologise for that terrible summary, just go watch the video and don't listen to me rant, but one of the circumstances he talks about is UK law when it comes to child custody. So this is a process that I've had some experience with, as in 2014 I went through a custody case to gain custody of my son. And before you start panicking about this being some sort of MRA-induced rant whose motivation is hatred of the system that had his kids taken from a father who had his kids taken away, that wasn't the case. And I was granted custody of my child. at present I am part of this the growing minority in the UK, because we're massively outnumbered by the single mums, but the growing minority of single fathers that exist in the United Kingdom. Single working father as well. So I'm a very busy person, which is why I'm always late at getting these videos out. That is my somewhat shocking, terrible excuse, and I'm going to stick to it. But so this isn't from the perspective of a person who feels they've been slighted by the system, but someone who's been through the whole thing and knows what it's involved, what it is involved. Yeah, I'll eventually string those three words together properly, but I'm going to give up for now and probably just type it. So, at present, UK law states that all things being even, both parents found to be fit, custody goes to the mother. So there are factors that the courts are supposed to look at. It's the 1989 Children's Act which weighs in heavily on this. So I'll read my way down the list. That's probably the easiest way of doing it. And this is only a brief summary. Your child's wishes and feelings. The older a child is, the more they take that into account. So, obviously a 3 or 4 year old, it's less the case. But certainly kids who are in their late teens are considered, not their mid and early teens even, are considered much more capable of giving input than toddlers and young children. They look at children's physical and emotional and educational needs. They look at things like changes of circumstances. So if one of the parents lives a long way from where all the child's friends are, where he's currently going to school, and these sorts of things that have to change, that's a factor they take into account. Child's age, sex and background, cultural and religious stuff. In my case, that was an element that was looked at, because my child is of mixed race, but so I can attest to them doing that. If the child has suffered harm or is at risk of suffering harm, and this also includes any domestic abuse the child has seen or heard. So basically, if the parents has been abusive or is suspected to have been abusive, they obviously take that into account. Parents' capabilities with regard to the child's needs. This can include assessing whether the non-resident parent is capable of caring for the child, or whether either parent is impaired by drink or drugs. I'm guessing that may also cover things like mental illness and disability, because I know of a case where one of the parents was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but this is from some time ago, and that was a serious factor which resulted in them not being granted custody. So there's a whole bunch of factors they take into account, and obviously when these factors were taken into account, I as the father was granted custody rather than, as is the norm, the mother being granted custody. I won't say which factors it was that decided that, because I don't want this to be a forum for me complaining about or chatting about my personal life. And I apologise if you want to know more. Here's not the place you're going to find it out, sadly, or not sadly, one of those. But where I feel I can expand on the subject on the other video is in personal experience. First of all, single dads in the UK are in a minority compared to single mums. In fact, I'll pull some figures up now. So I'm taking some statistics from gingerbread.org.uk, which is a UK-based charity for single parents, and it caters to both single dads and single mums. It's got sections for both and all sorts of information that single parents could find helpful. But they do have some statistics on their site, and the pertinent ones here are that there are around 2 million single parents in the UK, which make up a quarter of families with dependent children. So 1 in 4 families, that's quite a high percentage. Of those single parents, 91% are single mums and 9% are single dads. Those numbers haven't really moved in over a decade. So everywhere earlier in the video where I said the growing number of single dads, it's a vicious lie. It's just my personal perception, which sort of reinforces what I say about being within a thing. Obviously, I'm far more aware of single dads these days just because it's something I can relate to. So as percentages of total parents in the UK, single dads make up 2.25%, whereas single mums make up, what did I say, 25, so minus that, 22.75% of all parents. It's 9 times the number, which is a big difference. So roughly speaking, single dads make up 2.25% of all parents compared to 22.75%, which is made up by single mums in the UK. Obviously, not all of those cases. In fact, I would be surprised if it's even, a significant. If it's the majority, I think it's probably a significant minority of cases that are resolved in court. All of the rest are resolved outside of the courts, and are the disparity between dads and mums is going to be due to social pressures, social criteria, social outlooks, however you want to word it, but just how society perceives, in terms of parenting, the maternal role is perceived by society to be more significant than the paternal role. I think that's fair to say. Certainly the statistics would support that. And the law supports that. Now, where I challenge this is when making law, we should be objective. There shouldn't be an arbitrary decision made based on gender, ever. One way or the other. Now, in the past, it is my understanding, and I haven't studied this in detail, so I could be wrong, but in which case treat this as a hypothetical, but if in the past, like in the 1920s, custody was more generally granted to the father, and only in exceptional circumstances went to the mother, that would also be unreasonable, and the same principle would apply here. So it's not specific to which gender, but in this case it is the father who is being disadvantaged. So we find ourselves in the position where we've got a law that says if both parents are sound and capable of looking after the child, then parental responsibility goes to the mother, and the father is likely to get some kind of access to the child, but no major say in the events of the child's life. To have such a law, you've got to be working on the assumption that the mother, on balance, is going. There are factors that mean mothers are going to be better parents than fathers, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in 100% of cases, but a significant majority of cases, there needs to be evidence that the mother would be better than the father to have that assumption in place, because it's a weighting factor. So we weigh up all of the factors, and then we apply this balance that says mothers are better than fathers at raising children, and the courts reach their conclusion. That's essentially how the law works. But to make that assumption, there needs to be a mountain of evidence. to indicate that that's the case. Now I'm going to look at one area here where the evidence indicates somewhat to the contrary, and that is in instances of child abuse and neglect. So I'm taking my data from a study done in the US by an organisation that uses an acronym USDHHS, which stands for I don't know, US Department of Health and Human Services, and they did a study in 2007. That's a really long acronym. Anyway, and there's a section of the report who's dealing with the perpetrators of child abuse, and it says roughly 80% of perpetrators are parents, about 7% were other relatives. But it breaks it down further, and it says 17.3% of the abuses were abuse performed by both parents, or done by both parents, or however you prefer to word that. 18.3% were children who were abused by their fathers acting alone, and 40% of child victims had been maltreated by their mothers acting alone. So just based on that data, we're saying that children are twice as likely to be abused by their mothers. Now, there's a UK study that looks at similar information, and I can't find it for the life of me today, but if I do, I will put the link in down below. And that stated that the situation in which a child was most likely to be abused and suffer neglect was where the child was living with his biological mother, and she was in a relationship with a man who was living with them, who is not the biological father. That is the instance where children were at most risk. It was something like 30 times the risk of a relationship where there's a happily married couple. Now that is the ideal for a child to be raised in statistically. And that's not me saying that single parents can't do it, because I obviously don't believe that that's the case, but statistically that is the healthiest relationship for a child to be in terms of the risk of being in receipt of neglect. So that's just one area, and there are loads of areas that need to be looked at, and things like the ability to network, the ability to have a peer group of parents you can talk to about issues. That's a key one. Support from charities, and advice. All those things are things that need to be taken into account when working out if it's reasonable to bias mothers. That was said in such a derogatory tone. My God, he's a misogynist. No, if you're going to decide, if there's going to be a law in place that says priority is given to mothers, there needs to be some serious evidential support of mothers being more capable of looking after children. And anyone who believes that they've got some good evidence, or who believes they can put together a case like this, I'd love to read it. Because I'm struggling to find this sort of thing. I mean, there are reports that say that in certain areas certain parents do well, and I think it's definitely fair to say that mothers have access to a broader, more expansive network just as a result of there being so many more mothers actively caring for the children, even in relationships where both parents are married and happily living together. More often than not, the father is the breadwinner in the breadwinning role. The mother works part-time or not at all, which is why, for example, when we were looking at the gender pay gap, which I went over in another video, I didn't mention this, but in terms of part-time work, far bigger percentage of women perform part-time work in the UK than men. Which is why when you look at the pay gap for part-time work in the UK, it's actually the reverse, and women are paid significantly more than men on a median hourly rate. But it's not something it's not a topic I really want to cover in this video. But the lifestyle choice tends to be that the mother is the one who stays home and looks after the children. It's still fairly rare, and I know of a few cases personally, but if I go by the number of friends I have on Facebook, even from a couple of hundred friends, I know of one stay-at-home dad, and I can't really take a couple of hundred to be representative of a country with a population in excess of 67 million. So it's actually a meaningless statistic, but it definitely is a minority. And man, my chair was really squeaky there. Anyway, before I ramble on for ages, I think the point I'm trying to make here is if we're trying to create an equal society, if we're going to have a law that clearly promotes a gender inequality, there needs to be a wealth of evidence to support that assumption. And because and the argument applies to any gender inequality. If you're talking about, for example, saying women can't serve on the front line, and making that in a war zone, and that's part of your country's legislation, I believe that also you need to provide a wealth of evidence to indicate the reason why that isn't the case, to have any kind of legislation that doesn't treat genders with total equality. And maybe that's an issue I'll address in a future video, because I think it's a really very interesting video. If people would like to see that topic covered, please leave some comments below, and I will invest the time in doing some proper research, because it's a topic that really deserves looking at, and I think is immensely interesting. But on that note, again, I highly recommend going and checking out Noel Plum 99's 99. Is it 99? Yes, it is. Good video. I will leave the link down below. Thank you to him for making that. I think that was a really excellent video. I hope you found this interesting, and I will try and get some more content out soon. So from me, goodbye.